everybody. Welcome to another brand new review episode here on the
Geek
Buddies. Hey! Yeah, we're coming down to it. We're hitting the fourth episode of the Star Wars The Bad Batch here. Cornered. It's we're going to talk about so many things here on the show, and we get the return of Fennec Shand, or actually the appearance of Fennec Shand in animated form for the first time, with the return of Ming-Na Wen voicing the character of Fennec Shand. We got more with Omega, more with the Bad Batch, so much to get into. But let's introduce ourselves first. I'm the Outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Outlaw Nation and the Geek Buddies.
I am Michael Vogel. I am a writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm an animation writer and a television actor, where you may have seen me on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, The Goldbergs, and Silicon Valley.
And joining us yet again every week for these reviews, and much to our honor, is the great Laura Kelly. Laura, please, how are you? How are things?
I'm amazing. I'm excited to talk about this episode, and yeah, living my best vaccinated life. It's been a fun weekend. I'm excited.
Hey.
Yeah. I'm 4 days away from officially being full on 2 weeks after the second shot vaccinated. Ooh, I'm just going to walk around with my clothes off everywhere, because apparently that's what you're supposed to do. At least that's what
I've heard that too.
Yeah, at least that's what I heard. Yeah, that's what I heard. You don't have to wear masks or clothes. You just walk freely in the world now after you're vaccinated. That's what I've been told. But anyway, let's get into episode 4 here. This is first of 2 spoiler review warnings. We are going to spoil the episode, so if you haven't seen it, pause it here, go back and watch, and come back and pick it up where we left off. Let's get our overall thoughts right off the bat. Mike, we'll start with you. Feelings about this 4th episode in the series here, Cornered.
I thought this episode was nice. I think it was it was a pretty typical run-of-the-mill episode for a Star Wars show that I thought was made better by some awesome Star Wars detailing that we'll get into. And so I thought that the episode showed how adept this team is at understanding what makes Star Wars work, while at the same time kind of being a run-of-the-mill episode. I feel like we're a quarter of the way through, and the Bad Batch is sort of hopping from planet to planet, but doesn't really have a bigger drive for, at least for this side of the Bad Batch. Crosshair definitely has more going on. So interesting, but I'm definitely ready for things to pick up.
Okay. Laura Kelly, what do you think overall about this one?
I enjoyed it. I think this may have been our shortest episode to date at 25 minutes with credits, so it was definitely on the shorter side, but I totally agree with Michael. Sort of a run-of-the-mill episode, I think, in terms of like Clone Wars structure. I am getting a little bit, I guess, sort of impatient the fact that we don't have like the bigger picture, whereas like in The Mandalorian, the big driver was to, find the child a Jedi to train him. And at the moment, we're still not really sure where we're going with Omega, because we still don't really understand why the Kaminoans are so desperate to get her back now, when they initially just seemed to let her leave pretty easily. Yeah. But I gotta say, I enjoyed the sort of camaraderie and the chemistry we had between the Batch in this episode in particular. They all had sort of their own sort of mission that they had to accomplish, which was really fun. Interesting that we didn't get any Crosshair content in this episode at all. That was sort of strange to me. And yes, the introduction of some very fun new droids that I am very much hoping that we return back to at some point in this season.
Understood. Shannon McClung, a lot happened here. She said the droids that she's going to go gaga for a little bit later, but certainly we had Fennec Shand come back. But maybe Laura and Mike are onto something here. This frustration maybe that's starting to simmer amongst some of the fandom, that what's the story here? Even the Bad Batch is having questions themselves. Kind of meta moment near the end of the episode. What did you think overall about this one? Are they dragging this out? Do we feel more imperative about the story because we only had 10 episodes or 8 episodes of Mandalorian, and this one is like 16 or longer? Do you feel that they're taking advantage of this by dragging out a little bit more? And is this working against their favor?
Well, it'll be interesting to see. I definitely echo my colleague's feelings that a good episode, an average episode of The Bad Batch is still better than a good episode of other TV shows. Like, I still enjoy the world of Star Wars. I enjoy these characters. I enjoyed seeing Fennec Shand. That being said, we are waiting for that drive to kick in right now. Like, it seems like the Bad Batch's goal has been to get off the grid. They're trying to get someplace where they can just lay low, and that goal continues to elude them. Now, in terms of Omega, Yeah, I mean, I know Laura had said last week that she was ready to find out, okay, what is Omega's deal? What is this thing? They've added the wild card of Fennec Shand now, in that, okay, the Kaminoans we're presuming have hired a bounty hunter to get her back. But it's like, yes, we're waiting for that anticipation for the next episode to happen. Right now, it's just kind of like, oh, it was another adventure. It was Omega gets into trouble again this week. We really, but I think right now the fans are definitely clamoring for that bigger story. And anytime I think you have an episode without Crosshair, that is lacking, because that is, to me, thus far, that is the more interesting side of the show.
Right, and that you built that to be your big baddie. Yes, we've seen Tarkin. Yes, we've seen that Vice Admiral, but it's really Crosshair that we're already connected to, invested in, to find out what's going to happen with him when he confronts the Bad Batch all over again. And adding Fennec Shand to the mix is certainly an interesting X factor in this situation as well. I like the episode, but I agree with you all. It feels like a little bit of a filler episode. I get that they're trying to flesh out the world a little bit more, seeing, the stormtroopers getting claps and stuff, like you understanding that we're in a transition time. They're really kind of letting you know this is a transition time, and landing on different worlds kind of gives you an idea of what's happening here as it's moving along. But yeah, we've got to start getting a little bit more of the excitement in the show to get you excited. Yeah, momentum. Yeah, exactly. Like in Clone Wars, you knew stuff was building to stuff. This one, it seems like they're just kind of grinding a little bit slowly to get to where they're going. There may be a great payoff. It just feels a little slow right now. Mike?
Well, to be fair, I mean, I love Clone Wars, and I will say that Clone Wars, the animated series, has made me love this era of Star Wars more than anything in the prequel movies. Yeah. But when you go back to those big, huge, long seasons, there's a lot of filler there too. And I think that what we're really seeing now is less that the Bad Batch is not telling a great story. It's more that, thanks to streaming, we are used to smaller stories. Like, as Laura said, Mandalorian's 8 episodes. We'd be halfway done by now. Even WandaVision is 9, Falcon Winter Soldier 6. So having those 16 episodes and having them have their story, but trying to pace it out, we're seeing that our attention spans have adapted in the world of streaming, I think.
Yeah, this may be working against the show. That's a great point you bring up there. All right, let's get into it. Final spoiler warning. If you haven't watched the episode, turn back now. Unless you want things getting spoiled. Some people like that, so I'm all for it. All right, let's move on. A crew, the Bad Batch is trying to go to Adalfo. It's in an uninhabited planet. It's a good place to hide. But Omega wants to stay out in the galaxy and explore some more instead. They realize they're low on fuel and rations, and their ship is on the wanted list. This is an important fact that will play out throughout this episode. This causes them to head to another planet, Pantora. And for some of you who remember the Clone Wars, Pantora is the home of the young Senator Ryu Chuchi. He's in there, is from there as well. She appeared on the show as a background character a few more times and was there during Ahsoka Tano's dismissal from the Jedi Order. I love the animation here, the way the city looks and the way they're landing. It looks almost, and I saw this on a couple other reviews, I felt the same way. Some of the animation in this particular episode came real close to realism, and I was just blown away by some of the animation that we got to see here. They need to scramble the ship's signature key. They encounter a Sullustan docking official who takes some money to look the other way about the ship. I think this is Taran Killam who's doing the voice. He calls Fennec Shand. That's her first appearance here. She is off planet. We hear Ming-Na Wen's voice. We see the hologram of Omega. We remember this is a younger Fennec Shand. She's a bounty hunter. Remember, her nickname is Killer of Killers. So now she is going to go get Omega. She asks for the coordinates, make sure they don't leave. Now, Wrecker and stay behind while Echo Hunter and Omega go on a supply run. And then we see what I just mentioned here a few seconds ago. These troopers walking by. It was kind of mind-blowing to see the crowds cheering for these troopers now that we've walked into the Empire area era, and they don't know what they're cheering for. They're cheering for the end of the war, but they don't realize that an even dirtier war is coming. We see the hologram again of Vice Admiral Rampart talking about chain codes, and let's stop there. Okay, so Fennec Shand, Laura Kelly, Omega, Laura Kelly, they're going to put us in conflict. Fennec Shand essentially versus the Bad Batch for the soul of Omega. What do you think about this whole opening and them landing on this planet?
Well, I'm incredibly excited to have Fennec Shand back in Star Wars. I voiced this at the very beginning of the series, which is that I wasn't exactly sure how we were going to bring in like female energy and female characters into the show, and we've got a show focusing on 5 men. And I'm really excited that they seem to have done a fairly decent job of that over the course of this season so far, and nothing better than having Fennec Shand in this show. I'm so excited. She is 30 years younger than she is in The Mandalorian. We're about 30 years before that, which is sort of mind-blowing to think about. But bringing her into the story, I think, is great. I think we haven't seen the last of her. I'm sure she's going to be back at some point. I didn't go back and study the trailer to see, like, did we see this scene? Did we see this scene yet? But I'm fairly confident that she'll be back at some point. And looking forward to talking about that later. I enjoyed this scene in particular where we're kind of walking around the town. I think you're totally right that the animation and the design of this town is very cool looking. I noticed some of the sort of like more realistic, like looking animation as well, which was kind of fun. I don't know if we've spent a lot of time on Pantora. I don't remember clearly from the Clone Wars if we did. I know we did meet a couple of Pantoran characters, but there are a lot of humanoid and Pantorans that are looking on this parade and cheering. I think you can spot a Tuca cat in the background. I know a lot of us from watching the trailer suspected that this might be Coruscant because we just associate all city planets with Coruscant. But I like that we're seeing a sort of different vibe, a different sort of setting compared to the city that we're used to on Coruscant. So this was a really fun setting, I think, for this episode. And yes, seeing Saturday Night Live's Taran Killam sort of peppered throughout this episode in various characters, as well as Bobby Moynihan, was a lot of fun too.
Yeah, for sure. Mike, I mean, you're the animation guy, Mikey. Like, this is some beautiful animation, as I said, but also, the Bad Batch is kind of like figuring out how to survive in this new Empire era where they're not connected back to the Kaminoans, being hunted down, trying to figure out, well, even there's a comment that a wrecker makes, hey, we're transitioning into being civilian life. You're seeing this kind of transition for them as they understand what is happening episode per episode and what their status is.
On the Bad Batch front of it all, I think you're right. And I think this is something we continue to see, is that these soldiers are evolving to be not soldiers. And when you have a whole show that is talking about a bunch of clones that were bred for one purpose, seeing a bunch of our main characters who were bred for one thing that are learning and figuring out how to do a different thing is actually important. I mean, it's just fun character stuff. And like I said at the beginning, this is a pretty typical run-of-the-mill episode. We need supplies. We need to get some shit. We need to get our ship off of the wanted list. Let's land on the planet. Let's do some things. Problems ensue. So it's a pretty typical kind of self-contained episode. But within that, I do think it's important when you see like them, kind of bribing the Celestin and saying, here's what we're doing. We're figuring out this life. We don't have the Republic helping us out. I think that is all nice character stuff. So it's all well done. It's a well done typical episode,
right?
As far as that goes. As far as the animation, it's funny when everybody says it's like realism, because what I see when I look at it from an animation standpoint is something that Pixar always talks about. That Pixar always says they don't try and make anything look real. Like when they make Finding Nemo, that coral reef does not look like a real coral reef. It is way more colorful. It is way more vibrant.
True.
But they make something look the way that your brain wants it to look or thinks that it looks. And kind of create something that is hyper real. And the animation in this series, even more so than season 7 of Clone Wars, which was just stunning, is just beyond amazing. In the animation, the character acting, the backgrounds, everything, it is a hyper real environment that is using a very stylized animation style that still is making you believe that it looks real, which I think is the most impressive part of it. As far as Pantora goes, I love it. I think the highlight of this episode for me, more than the main plot line, was just the way that the Clone Wars / Bad Batch creative team knows Star Wars so well in and out that they can create this environment that feels so authentically Star Wars, it's insane. And what I really like about Pantora, to Laura's point about everyone thinking that it was Coruscant, is we spend a lot of time in the Outer Rim in Star Wars. We all love the Outer Rim. It's the Wild West out there. Everything is run down. We all love a Mos Eisley cantina. And if you love the prequels, you spend a lot of time in the core worlds like Coruscant, which is very city, very, giant spire buildings, flying cars. And Pantora was this great mid-rim world that is sort of the best of both parts. It has like the open air markets and the vibe, almost like Batuu if you've been to Disney, that feels more Outer Rim, but it's got the flying cars and the taxi cabs and the police force that makes it feel more of like a core world. And it was this nice blend of both the prequel things that people love in those planets and sort of the original trilogy thing kind of blended into one amazingly animated world, which I thought was neat. And then really quickly, just wanted to add, I really like, to your point, John, about the way that they're showing how easy it is for people to be seduced by the Empire.
Yeah.
That the war is over. We have these troopers that are now sort of slowly like, it's still the clone trooper uniform design, but no colors on it.
Yeah.
So it's sort of evolving towards where the stormtrooper is going to be, although it's not quite there yet. And everybody's cheering and everyone's excited. And I just love, Omega sort of gives voice to it. When Hunter is kind of like, this is happening really fast, I'm uncomfortable. You have the Rampart Hollow over here talking about the chain codes. And Omega's like, but the war's over. That's good, right? And he's like, it depends which side you're on. And you're just seeing this sort of uncomfortability with how quickly everybody is like, yay, the Empire is doing all this great stuff for us. Chain codes are great. I want to get those Imperial credits. Everything is wonderful. And you're like, ooh, this is not going to go well.
Right. You sense what's coming for sure. Shannon, story beats here. Maybe some foreshadowing down the road. I mean, Wrecker's comment sticks with me. This, as we're talking about transitions. I'm bringing it up a few times here, but also I sense last week we're going to be seeing the Bad Batch transition possibly out of being soldiers for a bit. And it seemed like Wrecker making that comment kind of alluded to that. But did you talk to me about the story beats, but also talk to me about, do you like that this is the way Fennec Shand was introduced in the animated world?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, when Vogel brought up Batuu at Disney, I mean, one of my notes was literally like, oh, this looks like Galaxy's Edge when they're in those shops. Yeah, I mean, as they're coming in, as the Havoc Marauder is coming into land, I mean, you see the money that they're putting into this. I mean, that is just a gorgeous shot. And I love how the Bad Batch, within the group, you have these pairings. And we're getting new pairings every week thus far. And all the pairings are interesting. Wrecker and Tech talking with a guy who's trying to get a bribe. You have Wrecker who's a little thick, and you have Tech who's extremely literal.
Right.
And Wrecker's just kind of like, you don't really need to scan our ship. He's like, oh, I guess I could look the other way. Like, hey, great. And they think like, yeah, high five, we did it. And then you see like they both start to realize, oh, that's right. He wants some credits. And then later we get the Hunter Echo pairing, which is quick, but it's just a different dynamic. And I think that's what it does so well. As far as the story beats, like with Fennec Shand, it's interesting because, Ming-Na Wen in live action, she looks amazing. She's almost 60. So when you see her in animation that it's 30 years ago, it's like if they're going off of her real world age, like, okay, so she's almost 30. Like for me, I almost wanted her design to look a little younger. Oh, okay. Because I wanted that connection with her and Omega. Like Omega sees someone who's looks older than her, but kind of looks her age almost. Like this is a person she can relate to. But Ming-Na Wen just looks incredible for someone who's in their late 50s.
Well, I would just say that the bounty life hardens you, man. It ages you. It's not an easy life. So she is younger, but it's a tough situation for sure. And Ming-Na Wen, it's always great to hear her voice or see her doing anything. All right, Tech tries to involve Wrecker in what he's doing. As Shannon pointed out, interesting pair. You've got the real literal guy and the just tell me what to rip out guy. So I like this combination for them. And then we go to Hunter, who's trying to sell some items here to a trader that's voiced by Bobby Moynihan, and he isn't buying anything that Hunter is selling at the price that Hunter wants to sell it for until he looks at looks at Echo and confuses him for being a droid. And to be fair, his outfit does kind of lend itself. It had a little First Contact Borg vibes. Don't come at me, but it had a little weird kind of design. It was a little bit of that. Of course, I know that's Star Trek, so I don't want to get in trouble here. But Hunter and Echo work out a deal to sell him for 3,000 credits with the plan that he'll break out when he gets the signal from Hunter. That was an uncomfortable moment for me, to be honest with you, selling a friend or a human. It was just a little strange. And especially when people have been speaking so powerfully in the Star Wars fandom for years about the disrespect towards droids. Even someone who is confused for a droid is getting a little bit disrespected here. Anyway, Omega gets distracted by a couple of cute creatures who take her trooper doll and then just take off, and she takes off on this busy street running after them, trying to get her doll back. We see Vorpox, we see Goldtails, we see Toka Cats. Omega chases after them and is in full overload mode as she's processing what's happening in this busy square. Then Fennec Shand shows up and offers to help her find her friends. Very eerily, an Echo is put in charge of the droids in that merchant's back room. And Echo is immediately challenged by CG-67, a C-3PO type droid voiced by the great Griffin, who some of you may remember as the voice of Padme Amidala and Asajj Ventress, amongst other voices in the Clone Wars. Hunter is tracking down Omega in the square. Omega and Fennec walk together, and Fennec teaches her how to steal or to break the rules sometimes. They discuss how Fennec protects herself with the blaster. Then Hunter shows up, and we got ourselves a showdown between Fennec and Hunter. All right, Mike, we've built to the showdown. One thing about all this setup here with a little more of the schooling of Omega, kind of figuring out what a busy market square is like. She said she wanted to explore. We got that, but then we lead to this Hunter versus Fennec Shand confrontation right after we have Hunter selling Echo for 3,000 credits. What do you think about all this?
Well, I really enjoyed the Echo stuff. As we've been talking about, I feel like Echo has been serviced a little less than other members of the Bad Batch in the episodes up till now. True. And not that this was any kind of huge character arc for Echo, but it was a really fun arc. Mm-hmm. His sort of insistence that he's worth more than 2,000 credits. I'll do this, but I'm worth more than 2,000 credits. This was a great fun Star Wars moment where you're sort of just how are we going to get out of this situation? Well, we're going to do something that's a little bit shady, but it's kind of funny. And then to follow that up with the introduction of CG, the protocol droid, who I just think protocol droids are funny. I just think protocol droids in their prissy, officious, this is the way things are supposed to work. Yeah. And I really enjoyed the Astromechs, but I'm going to save that for Laura. So I'm going to let Laura talk Astromechs, although I'm going to 100% agree with everything that she says. I like that Omega saw the Vorpax, nice little Star Wars Resistance nod right there. Yeah. And then I really loved the introduction of Fennec. What I really like about Fennec Shand is through what we've seen of her in Mandalorian and now what we're seeing in this episode, you're not quite sure how you feel about her. She's a bounty hunter. She's got a job, and her job is to get Omega. And so we know that that's not a good thing, and we know that we want Omega to stay with the Bad Batch. But the way that Fennec treats Omega, the conversation that they have, she just represents that amazing thing that bounty hunters represent in Star Wars, which is that gray area. Mm-hmm. We've got our good guys, we've got our Jedi, we've got our heroes, we've got the Rebellion, we've got our bad guys, we've got our Sith and the Empire, and then bounty hunters just live in this gray area where, depending on the moment and depending on the money and depending on how they're feeling, we don't know how they're going to go. And so Fennec being the one to introduce this gray area to Omega with the stealing of the fruit and saying, hey, sometimes it's okay to break the rules. Mm-hmm. This is an important part of what makes the Star Wars universe. And so Omega sort of seeing that for the first time, and us getting to the end and going, well, Fennec Shand is clearly a badass. Mm-hmm. Is she going to be more of an ally by the end of this? Is she going to be a problem? I'm not quite sure where she's going to land. And I loved that Ming-Na Wen played it that way. I loved all of that. So I thought it was a great way to kind of bring her into this.
Yeah, she kicked some ass here, Laura, for sure. And it was quick. She distracted. Hunter kind of got tangled up with her and not long enough for Omega to escape. But overall, I think this is a great introduction to Fennec Shand. Did you like this? Talk to me about selling Echo and talk to me about the droids. What were you feeling overall?
I mean, I would agree with what Michael just said about selling Echo. I had the same thought where he's just like, I am worth more than 2,000. How dare you? Like, it was such a really funny moment. And it was kind of funny to me because I didn't realize that, like, they weren't purposely trying to pass him off as a droid when he, like, came out of the ship dressed up in this disguise. I figured that was the idea. But yeah, it was just kind of a very fun play and just a very sort of Star Warsy moment. I love this introduction of this little clone trooper doll. I don't know if we'd seen this before, but it's awfully cute, very reminiscent of Stormy was Jyn Erso's doll in Rogue One. Yes. So that was just a fun little reference. With these droids that are living behind in the back room of this shop, I mean, I totally agree. I was totally taken with all of them, with Clink in particular. He was just adorable to the point where I didn't even bother learning the names of the other three because I only cared about Clink because he's just adorable. I mean, the fact that they put arms and legs on like a little, what looks like an R2 droid, and he just kind of scurries around in the cutest way. I don't know how they do these things, but if I can't get a doll or a figure or a shirt or something with this droid on it, or at least more content with him in this show, we're gonna have some problems. So that's my insistence. But yeah, this was a really fun character. Again, love seeing Bobby Moynihan. These Saturday Night Live guys are such huge fans of Star Wars. I just love it for them that they get to voice characters in these shows. Like, I'm just excited for them. It's just awesome. And yeah, the fact that we have Fennec Shand, it almost kind of seems to me like they couldn't decide really what direction to go with her, so they just didn't change her very much at all. In terms of like, well, she's 30 years younger. Is she sort of a more hardcore, more deadly, more ruthless version of what we have in The Mandalorian? Or is she sort of a softer, like a little more easygoing, a little more sympathetic? They kind of couldn't decide. It kind of seems like they just sort of walked that middle ground with this character, which is fine. I think I kind of clung a little bit more to the fact that she did come off a little softer, and I think she was trying to act like that towards Omega so as to not frighten her off. But the great thing that I think we still got out of Fennec in this episode is that despite the fact that she has a reputation for being ruthless, she has a moral compass, and we didn't lose that. I mean, she doesn't let Omega fall when she's on top of this tower. That we'll get to that later. But it's just one of those things where you can still kind of see that part of her, which again makes me think that we will see more of her. And I sort of question the same thing, John, of is she going to eventually end up as an ally to the Batch by the end of this season? I would be curious to see that, which makes me then even more curious to know of what was that conversation like when she meets up with Boba Fett 30 years later in The Mandalorian, and she wakes up and he has saved her. She now owes him a life debt and is bound to him. What was that conversation like? That's something now I'm even more curious to see, now that she's probably going to eventually have this sort of relationship with the Bad Batch with these characters. But we'll see. I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll see where it goes. Yeah,
I mean, and you have to be concerned, right? If Fennec Shand, by the end of this episode, we'll get to that in a little bit, but by the end of this episode, a Fennec Shand crosshair duo is a daunting duo to be going up against for sure down the road if that happens. And just one more thing for Laura. Let's take a look.
Oh, God.
I mean, it really is. Clink really is stupidly cute.
It's these things. It's the legs and these things, right? I think.
And the noise he makes as he shuffles.
The noise.
He's
that's right.
Well, it was like they do a really funny thing. They did it. Filoni loves doing it clearly because in Mandalorian season 1, at the end when they're on that boat, you have that astromech droid that all of a sudden like has the arms and legs and sort of rows the boat that pops out, and now you've got Clink here, and it's really fun. Like astromechs are, some of R2D2 is one of the most beloved characters in Star Wars, and astromechs are pretty cute on their own. But like seeing how they can double down on the cuteness in new ways with all the different variations is I'm sure coming to a gift shop at Disneyland near you soon.
It better. But Mike, I don't appreciate you bringing up that droid. I don't want to see a Dante's Peak moment with Clink by the end. If I have to see that, I swear to God.
That's fair. And speaking of cute, let's go to Shannon. Shannon, you look at this situation here. Did you enjoy this whole thing? Did you find the humor in the selling of Echo? to that trader there? Did you like to merchant rather? Did you like that? And also, what did you feel about Fennec Shand's the action here at this point? Because I'll swing back to you again once we get to the further bits of the action. What do you think of this so far?
Well, I mean, the trying to pull one over on the shopkeeper, the Bad Batch, they break rules.
Yeah.
The whole idea that Hunter is completely okay with this. Like, listen, we got to get the credits. He thinks you're a droid. We're just gonna do this. There was a moment with Echo when he's just like, I am worth more than 2,000. I got Gene Hackman vibe from the end of the Birdcage. Like, don't leave me. I don't want to be the only girl with that. That is full on the feeling that I got from it. And then once Echo is sold, and you hear him adopt this sort of 1960s like Lost in Space robot vibe, like right this way. It's just like, and now most droids in the Star Wars universe do not talk like this.
Yeah, right.
I thought it was really, really funny that Echo's a soldier. He was not. He wasn't like a black ops guy. He wasn't a clandestine operative. The moment where Omega meets Fennec was awesome. I mean, that was probably my favorite moment. And when Hunter comes up, like the thing that Hunter has this enhanced tracking, but right away he senses this is danger. Like this is somebody bad. And the fact that Fennec kind of confirms it when she puts her helmet on, this is like, all right, let's do it. Yeah. I mean, that was a really nice sequence. And the clink of it all, I know they have their gonk droid, but I was like, I really wish Clink would go with the Bad Batch, but especially with him walking. I'm like, I feel like those legs and arms are new. Yeah. That this is something he's just still kind of learning how to do, hence the kind of toddler walk that he has.
It's a fair point, for
God.
sure. But this is an interesting sequence, and we'll move on for just in just a second. But like you're right. There's something you brought up, Shannon, just kind of occurred to me as well. Like this idea, like the Bad Batch are stealing from this guy because they're tricking this guy into giving him 3,000 credits, but they need it, so they're going to trick this poor merchant. Who knows if this poor merchant is living paycheck to paycheck? It doesn't matter. We got to get our credits, and then you juxtapose that with Fennec Shand kind of doing the same thing, tricking this merchant, bumping her, having her drop her things, then pretending to help her while stealing some things for themselves. So you got to exist. You got to live. This is the uncomfortable stuff we're going to see going forward. And I like that they're showing it. I like that they're not making this, for lack of a better term, a Disney-ified approach to it. There's a little more of a harder edge kind of bubbling underneath it, which I like. So, all right, let's move on. Hunter, as I said, Hunter distracts Fennec long enough for Omega to escape. And just when he disarms Fennec, she delivers the knockout headbutt blow and runs off when a security detail shows up. Hunter calls in the Bad Batch to help. Omega runs through the marketplace, goes down in some maintenance tunnels. Echo is monitoring her because he has access to all the cameras. Fennec isn't far behind. And then Omega slams into Wrecker, who is there to carry her out. And just when he starts to, Fennec Shand shows up, get ourselves a little showdown, and she disarms or takes him out quicker than she took out Hunter. Echo and the droids are working on the ship in the meantime, and Omega steps out onto a tower, and we see a really awesome moment that brought to mind some sequences from the prequel trilogy, seeing all these speeder bikes going through in traffic, seeing the levels of as well in terms of the strata, the middle class versus lower class, all that, seeing it throughout as she's watching this. Fennec blasts her way onto the tower. Tech tells Hunter that Omega is hanging from the tower because the blast kind of knocked her, and she's hanging from the tower. Hunter steals a speeder to save her. Fennec saves her before she falls, catches her. They both jump to a cargo speeder ship. Fennec has a great line, which she said, just remember to drop and roll when you hit this thing. Omega works to control the ship and managed to shake Fennec Shand off of the ship by herself. So again, we've talked about this idea that she's an amalgam possibly of all the droids. Look how quickly she's thinking to get out of a situation when she senses danger. Fennec falls onto a speeder and promptly kills a guy and takes his speeder, then rams Hunter out of the way and kills a police person. Then Hunter recalibrates, saves Omega, and they blow up Fennec's ship. All right, Shannon, let's go to you first. What did you think? I mean, this whole episode seemed to be kind of slowly building to something, and then we had an awesome action sequence here. What did you think of this?
I mean, full-on Attack of the Clones vibe. I mean, this was very similar to the Anakin Obi-Wan chase.
Yes.
I mean, the fact that Fennec took out Wrecker like that. I mean, again, you get you get to see what the Bad Batch does well. And Wrecker is not a tactical fighter. I mean, he is a blunt instrument. Mm-hmm. And when he's up against someone who understands that they don't have the size, they may not have the strength, you get more kind of Aikido vibes from Fennec, that she's able to use that considerable weight against Wrecker. Mm-hmm. When you get to the chase before Omega drops, I mean, it was interesting how Laura was saying that Fennec kind of has a softer side. I see that, but I see her as more of a business. She's a business person. Like mm-hmm. if this property is damaged, she doesn't get paid. Yeah. And I think like with any profession, if you're in it for decades, your patience goes down. And so when we meet her in Mandalorian, yes, I think she definitely has the reputation for being ruthless, but at the same time, she doesn't have time to deal with any BS. She's going to do this as quickly as possible. The actual, like when you see Fennec essentially kill 3 people.
Yes, she kills 3 people.
I mean, the one that was the most sort of jarring was when she takes her blaster and shoots that cop in the chest.
Dead shot, dead.
I mean, I feel like you know, obviously there was a decent amount of death in the Clone Wars, but it's different when you kill something with a face. Like when you see that reaction, that moment of the blaster shot impact, and the poor cop then runs into his partner, and they both blow up. So you're establishing the stakes right away that she is willing to do whatever she needs to do to complete the job.
She's the killer of killers. That's what they call her. We didn't see, I mean, the guy she throws out, Mike, we didn't see what happened to him either. So he could be dead. We don't know what's going on. Clearly, she's got she's got a mission to accomplish, and whoever gets in her way is going to get the full brunt of Fennec Shand.
It is fun. It's great. I mean, I do think it's a funny thing. Like I've accepted the fact that people gonna die. Like after last week, like what Fennec Shand did this week, I wasn't like, holy shit. I was like, yeah, this is the world. I do think it's really interesting. What it does show is we are so used to our animation in television and really features as well, that it is a family audience, it is a kid audience, and streaming has drastically changed that. You know, I worked on season 3 of Young Justice, which was on the DC streaming app and is now on HBO Max. And the difference between the first 2 seasons of Young Justice that were on Cartoon Network and the 3rd season and the upcoming 4th season is like, it's violent. People can die. Because on streaming, you're allowed to do it. And we're seeing this, even though Disney is Disney, on Bad Batch, it was the same in season 7 of Clone Wars and some of the stuff we saw. You were like, oh yeah, shit's going down in a more intense way than even previous episodes of Clone Wars had been. So I think it's great that we live in this world because you just never quite know what's going to happen. Yeah. As far as the chase itself, I think Shannon's right. It was like, to me, it was the Attack of the Clones chase, but better and more fun, more dynamic. Props to the random, like, Aqualish taxi cab driver who's listening to EDM in his car. Like, it's such a random cutaway shot, but, like, it's a beautifully animated, beautifully designed character who's just rocking out to his EDM music in the middle of a fight, and it was just a great cutaway. And then the other thing, in addition to just the great choreography of this fight, what I really did enjoy about this episode, that they did in a very satisfying way, is every single one of the Bad Batch had their role to play. Yeah. Everybody came together, and it was very in character. Wrecker, Omega was in danger. Kid's gone. She's being chased. Wrecker took off. Yep. Wrecker's like, I gotta protect my friend. He's very emotional. It was great. Tech went right into that ship and like tapped into the video cameras across the city, tracking everything, telling everybody where to go. Hunter is hot on the tail, and then, you know, Tech is like, we're not going to get off this planet if we don't have an entire crew, and Echo's like, I happen to have a crew right here. Yeah. In the most satisfying moment when they all just march out of that vendor's office. And it's just like, it's a great moment where all the little bits and pieces from the episode, like the fun throwaway stuff with Echo, Tech doing this, like it all comes together and everyone is playing a role while this big chase is happening in a very, very satisfying way.
Yeah, it's not easy to be able to give all these characters something essential to do in a sequence like this. They really did do a good job of that. I agree with you, Michael. Laura, what'd you think about all of this? And are they challenging us a little bit with Fennec Shand, as you mentioned earlier? Like, she does save Omega, but is she saving Omega out of an altruistic place, or saving Omega because that's her bounty and doesn't want anything to happen to her? And also, by the same token, she's off shooting people left and right here, killing them with dead shots. So what'd you think about this whole action sequence and her behavior throughout?
Well, it occurred to me after I talked about Fennec Shand that she's looking for Omega and probably was ordered to keep her alive. Obviously, the Kaminoans need her for something, just because of Jango Fett's DNA deteriorating or his genetic material deteriorating. So I think, they're going after Omega for something that they probably need her alive for. So yeah, I imagine there's a method to the madness, but I echo a lot of what Shannon and Michael said, down to the Aqualess driver of this truck, like vibing to the electronic music and missing all of the action that's taking place behind him. There was another thing that occurred to me, which is that there's a little bit of, I sort of sense some similarities between Fennec Shand and Omega. They're both very resourceful. We've got Omega, who has no experience in the real world, virtually none, has been to now officially, I think, 3 planets that aren't Kamino. And the fact that she spots the lever and she can, have the truck that she's on lifts and knocks Fennec Shand off. Little things like that. We see that Omega's very observant. She notices Fennec's blaster as they're walking through the marketplace earlier in the episode and asks her about it. She's very curious, but she's very observant as well, which I think is going to lend itself to maybe some of the skills that we eventually learn about her, which we're still, she's still a big question mark of exactly what is she, but I think it is a sort of safe to say that she's an amalgamation of all of the Bad Batch, with the exception of maybe Wrecker. That sort of brute strength isn't something we've seen yet, but maybe we'll see it eventually.
I know.
Who knows?
I'm looking forward to it. I want to see that. I want to see her rip off the sleeve and she's got a tattoo. I would love that. Hey, we go.
But Wrecker does actually, out of all of them, have a sweetness and innocence that Omega has that the others 100%. Don't. Like, I think that there's that comparison between the two of them.
The heart, yes, absolutely. Agreed.
Anything more on that, Laura? Or are we moving on?
No.
Okay. We don't know that it's her, that it's the Kaminoans who sent her, right? We don't really have that confirmed. So we're assuming that might be a possibility, but it could be somebody else. It could be Tarkin. It could be anybody who wants to get their hands on that droid. We don't know. The clone. We don't know just yet.
Fennec had a hollow of her.
Yeah.
And so reason dictates that, there aren't a ton of pictures of Omega out there. So reason dictates it's probably from Kamino. It very well could be Tarkin, or it could be from the previous 2 planets. But reason dictates it's Kamino.
Well, because they let her leave on the ship. So why would they all of a sudden want to get her back? Is that because of Tarkin changes?
Well, Lama Su let her leave.
Lama Su, right. Fair enough.
Nala Se.
Nala Se.
Yeah.
Nala Se let her leave.
Yeah.
Clearly on of her own volition, and it's that's part of the mystery. I don't think it would be Tarkin. I don't know that the Empire is aware of Omega. I mean, Tarkin was standing right with Omega and didn't really pay her any mind one way or the other. So I don't know that the Empire would be, but it could be a third party that we don't know of. But I mean, safe money is Kaminoans.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm sure we'll find out as we go along. Let's get to the last sequence here. Oh, where was I? Oh no, I lost it all. Here we go. Okay. So, all right. So then, let's see. Fennec tells Blaster. Yeah, I got all that. Fennec falls onto the speeder. Got that. All right. Fennec falls into speeder, promptly kills the guy. Hunter recalibrates, saves Omega. There we go. Hunter recalibrates, gets back into the race, saves Omega, and then blows up Fennec's ship. Fennec lands safely, of course, because she's good like that. The droids finish up fixing the ship. Hunter shows up with Omega. The rest of the Bad Batch show up as well. jump into the ship, and they escape, much to that person who runs the docks their chagrin. The Bad Batch realizes now that Omega is a valuable target. This is a critical mini moment here where they realize that she is a target that people are trying to get back now, and that Fennec was a bounty hunter hired to capture her, and they need to find out who Omega is and why people want her. So now the Bad Batch is in on the mystery with us as an audience to find out who Omega actually is. Fennec pays off the dock official after the dock official thinks he's going to get killed, but she's not giving up on capturing her, and it ends on a close-up with her determined to go get her bounty. Michael, I'll swing back to you on this one. What did you think about this way to end the episode, but also this little conversation here about the Bad Batch realizing that Omega is more than just a part of them? She's also a valuable commodity people are trying to come get.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like I said, we're a quarter of the way through now. We're 4 episodes in, and the Bad Batch now, in addition to just kind of being on the run and wanting to lay low, now knows that people are after Omega. So I think that will start to give us that momentum that we're all kind of feeling like we want, which is now it's like, well, hold on. Who was Fennec Shand? What's going on? Why are bounty hunters after? Like, there's more of a goal of like, let's find this out. And I think that will sort of start to unravel all of the cloneness of it all and the inhibitor chips and what's really happening. So I'm excited for that to sort of continue to pay off. And then what I really liked about this last scene with the Celestin and Fennec Shand was kind of what everybody's been talking about. Shannon and Laura were talking about Fennec Shand. And is she ruthless? Is she just a professional? Is she sweet? Is she this? I think what we see in this final scene is if she had been any one of a number of bounty hunters that we have seen in Star Wars, in Clone Wars, that dude probably would have been shot. And I think the fact that she comes in and not only doesn't kill him, but gives him more money and says, hey, keep me posted on this. You see that she really is a businesswoman. Like, she's not a ruthless person. She's not a vindictive person. She's not someone with a chip on her shoulder. Like, she is very cut and dry. Like, this is the job. And I like that about her. And I do think what will be interesting is as we find out whether it's the Kaminoans or whoever it is that wants Omega, that hired Fennec, I think the more that Fennec learns, we may also see that what motivates her goes beyond just money. Just like with her and Boba in Mandalorian in season 2, where at a certain point, protecting Grogu was less about the money and more about, like, I'm honor bound to do this thing, and then once I do this, I'm out. I think we're going to maybe see a little bit more of that here as well. So I'm interested to see where it goes. I hope it gets there sooner than later.
Right. Laura, it seems like the Bad Batch have now made a little bit of an enemy with Fennec Shand at this point because they've got Omega, but also her interactions with them here. Obviously, this means we're probably going to see her again throughout the series. So what did you think about this whole ending sequence and that mini moment on the ship as well?
Well, I think part of it indicates that we might be coming back to Pantora at some point.
Right.
Because I sort of question, like, what is the point of keeping this character alive and not killing him, but giving him money? I thought was an unusual move. I think Michael makes a good point that it's definitely a business move for Fennec, and that, who knows, maybe he can help her in the future on a different bounty. She's just making friends throughout the galaxy. Where, it's hard to say. But the Kaminoans can track Omega, from what I understand. I mean, I thought that's what we saw Nala Se doing when the ship took off.
Yeah.
Was that they had some sort of tracker where they can tell where she is. So why do we then need this Celestin character to tell Fennec? Like, why wouldn't the Kaminoans just hire Fennec? I don't know. So there's something that's not quite clear to me there, that I'm kind of hoping gets resolved at some point. But yeah, I would definitely say we're going to see more of Fennec Shand. I wouldn't be surprised if we come back to Pantora. I wouldn't be surprised if we encounter more bounty hunters along the path for the rest of this season. Sure. Maybe some familiar faces, maybe even Boba Fett. I mean, that could be sort of a fun tie-in, I think, for this show. And maybe like Boba Fett and Fennec Shand know each other from a past life, and that we could be seeing that past life play out in this season. But yeah, I think that it does add a little bit of like motivation. It adds a little bit of like the path ahead. We weren't quite sure where they were going. We weren't quite sure what the big picture is. And we're sort of slowly finding our way there.
Yeah.
Someone made a good point at the very beginning, I think it was Michael, of this episode, where we were talking about how the Clone Wars had a lot of filler episodes. There are entire episodes where the plot just stops dead so that we can have an entire story about droids. And not even cute droids like Clank, just droids. And so it's kind of nice that we're not doing that anymore. We're keeping the story going. And then one other point I find it necessary to make, we've got the Gonk droid. He seems really helpful to the Bad Batch. I don't know why we couldn't have just taken Clink with us. He would have been a good helper. The Gonk droid seems like he might be a little antiquated. He's a little slow. He's a very good boy. But Clink could have just been a really good... I think they would have been best friends. I think Wrecker would have taken good care. I'm laying out the argument to bring him back. Please, God. That's all. I'm just saying.
The opinions of Laura Kelly, alone on this show. We do not promote ageism, which is what she just did. Oh my God. Get rid of the old droid, bring in the new young one. That's cute.
I'm saying they would complement each other. Just saying.
Fair enough. Shannon, what do you think of this? And do you think we're setting up here possible battles within the Bad Batch over Omega? For example, as you just mentioned at the beginning of the show here, you mentioned how Tech is very literal. Tech may want to look inside Omega's head, may want to take her apart in some way to look into inhibitor chip, whatever's been working on that scanner, right? He may want to investigate more about why she is being pursued by these people, what's going to make her special. Maybe that causes some division with Hunter, with Wrecker, with Echo, what have you. There's got to be a little bit of mini conflict here amongst the Bad Batch. Now that you've kind of removed Crosshair and made him the villain, there still needs to be a little bit of conflict, I feel, story-wise within these four. Do you think that's a possibility now that they know that she is essentially precious cargo?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Tech building that scanner to figure out the deal with their inhibitor chips. I think absolutely that scanner is going to be on Omega at some point.
Yeah.
And for Tech, it is completely scientific.
Right.
Get
the answer. Yep.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if there is conflict within the Bad Batch, because you don't really know what the source of the conflict is going to be. We've not seen, because Tech is so logical, as long as it makes sense, it seems like he's going to be okay with doing it. Wrecker is at his heart a big softie. I mean, it seems like it'll probably come from Echo. I mean, Echo even stated that in episode 2, I think. What are we going to do with this kid? This is a bad call. I mean, this is like Saving Private Ryan with Vin Diesel wanting to bring this child along. This is endangering our mission. And now that they know that their initial objective to go and lay low is not possible, because they do have precious cargo that other interested parties are wanting to get. Before, they thought, we're on the run, but if we lay low long enough, there's enough going on in the galaxy, they are going to forget us.
Yeah.
It's not the same when you took someone else's toy, essentially. They are going to want to get that back. Yeah. So that's a really interesting theory, John. I hadn't thought about Tech wanting about Omega possibly having some sort of inhibitor chip. That's interesting.
Yeah, I just feel like that you've got to create within that five-person crew. You've got to create a little conflict. That's what drives any story. And so, how are you going to find the conflict? Trying to find out her background, trying to find out what she's made of. And I could just see Wrecker getting super pissed at Tech trying to probe her, Hunter being overprotective as a dad, Echo being the one who's kind of calming everybody down. And remember, Echo is the one that has been hooked up to a machine and prodded and poked and had his arm cut. So there's things that could come back as PTSD here that could come up here overall throughout. So just throwing it out there that that's possible. It may not happen, but it occurred to me as we're talking about it could be a way to have organic, natural conflict that makes sense. Mike?
No, I think maybe, I don't know that there's anything in Tech's character that would maybe lead us to say, let's take Omega apart and see what's under the hood. But I do think that just the idea of, to Shannon's point, our plan was to lay low. The people are after her. Is she really a part of the team? Are we
right.
I don't even know that they'll go here, but would Tech or would Echo be maybe we should give Omega up? I don't know that they will. I kind of feel like the conflict will kind of more be in the we all agree that Omega's part of the team and we need to protect her. The how of it might be a conflict, but we'll see. I do think you are right that we do want to see them all disagree on what to do and how to handle things. I think another big disagreement, in addition to the Omega of it all, is clearly in last week's episode, in the conversation that Hunter and Omega had, Hunter feels bad that they left Crosshair behind.
Yeah.
Hunter wants to go back. And I think once they get more information about the inhibitor chip and do break it down to the fact that there's a argument to be made that Crosshair is not doing this of his own volition.
Yeah.
And if we could get his inhibitor chip out, he could be our guy again. I think that's going to create a lot more conflict. Like, do we go back into the lion's den and save the guy that was trying to kill us? Mm-hmm. And I think in that respect, Tech and Echo would be like, fuck no. And Wrecker and Hunter would be like, it's our boy. So I do think there is more conflict to come. It'll be interesting to see what direction it comes from.
Yeah. Any final words, Laura, before we wrap?
It occurs to me that we haven't seen a ton of a ton of Tech and Omega interaction. Mm-hmm. We've seen Wrecker, Hunter, and Echo all sort of, express a sort of like attachment to her, or like at least some like kindness towards her. And we just haven't seen that very much from Tech yet. And I know that's kind of not who he is as a character.
Right.
But I imagine that has to be coming at some point, and maybe it's going to be part of this, like, investigating whether or not she's got a chip and how to remove it, and what that inevitable storyline that's coming down the line. But that's something I would like to see at some point, just for him to show a little bit of, like, I don't know, not necessarily affection, but just some sort of like expressed acceptance of her being part of the team.
That's fair. And maybe while he's using the scanner, they find something else other than the inhibitor chip inside her that could lead to even more mysteries or I don't know, conflict down the road. So yeah. And Tech feels to me like he's a little more in cousin with Crosshair than he is with the rest of the Bad Batch. Just a little bit, not fully, just a little bit. Not saying he's a bad guy, just saying he's so down by the book that emotional stuff doesn't deter him from getting to an answer. Could lead to something down the road for sure. All right, that's our overall thoughts on episode 4 of the Bad Batch Cornered. So thank you all so much for watching this episode. We appreciate it madly. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, I'd like to follow us on social media. On Twitter, it's at @geek_buddies. On Instagram, at @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media. On Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung. On Instagram, at Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is at MKToon. If you would like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is at The Rocha Says.
Mikey?
If you are enjoying this as much as that Aqualish cab driver enjoys EDM, here are some things that you can do to help us out and to keep on keeping on with the Geek Buddies. You can smash that like button below, subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw page, check out all the other awesome content. If you are listening to us on podcast on Apple Podcast or Anchor or Spotify or anywhere where podcasts are available, leave us some comments there, leave us some stars, helps us go up in the rankings. And of course, the best thing that you can do is retweet this video, post it on your Facebook page, text it to your friends, say, hey, check this out. These guys have some things to say about clones and droids with arms and legs.
that cab driver moment. It reminded me, I just finished watching Ant-Man over the weekend for our watch along on stereo, and it's that Garrett Morris moment where he lands on top of the car and he's like, what the hell? It just felt like that. It's totally, like, it had nothing to do with the overall thing, but it was a great little moment. So, but Laura Kelly, thank you so much for joining us again this week. Please, it's always a blast to have you on. Please promote whatever it is and let people know where they can follow you.
Sure, come follow me on Twitter. Right down here, it's at @shutup_Laura. I am actively watching a lot of Star Wars material right now because I'm going to be playing the current Star Wars champion, Andrew Demolanta, at the Schmodown's upcoming Collision on July 10th. So stay tuned for that. I'll be tweeting a lot about Star Wars, a lot of silly things that I'm surfing while watching the movies, so come find me there. My show is at Force Toast Pod. You can follow the show Force Toast to Star Wars Happy Hour and find us at all of the wonderful places you find podcasts, where my friend Alice and I drink wine and talk about Star Wars. It's a very fun show, so please check it out.
That's right. And Laura and I will be back with Jedi Way very soon. Thank you all so much for being patient as I suffer through the Moderna vaccine. I'm back fully healthy and ready to go. So we'll be back with our episode of Jedi Way coming soon. All right, that's it from us. Take care of yourselves. Be well. We love you. Keep practicing all the things you're supposed to practice to keep yourself healthy and safe. And come back and see us for another full-on episode of the Geek Buddies with another spoiler review of the Bad Batch here on the
Geek
Buddies!
Hey!